Okay, so let's take 3 deep breaths together while we anchor the circle and hopefully allow a few more souls to arrive. A deep breath in. And hold and release. And a deep breath in. And hold and release. And another deep breath in. And hold and release. We are going to get started with the heart meditation first and truly unite and anchor the circle. For those of you who were on the Saturn-Uranus call, you'll remember it from then. I am trying to integrate it to every call. We're going to do 3 steps. There's a heart focus and the heart breathing and then tuning into the heart feeling. And what this does is, again, we're going to allow everything else to fall away just for an hour or 2. That's not too much to ask, but everything that we do out in the world and for our families and for our job, it's not too much to ask this little hour or 2 for ourselves. This is our time to replenish and gather juice and information, to go back in the world armed and ready to do what we need to do on an everyday basis. So the heart focus takes your focus right to your heart. If you need to, you can put your hand over your heart. But the whole point is to tune into your own rhythm, your own heartbeat. Tuning in right there and noticing little fluctuations. I've noticed the more I'm doing this, the more I notice how different my rhythm really is. And tuning into your own heartbeat. And give that a minute or so just to tune in. And as you're tuning into your heartbeat, remembering that it is the only organ that is both electro and magnetic, just like Mother Earth. This is what connects us to Mother Earth and to each other and to the field which protects us and keeps us here safe. The heart breathing is to breathe as deeply as you can, as if you are breathing from or through your heart itself. So let's do like 3 deep breaths there. Just really breathe into your heart. Feel it expand. And breathe out. And we're doing our heart breathing right now. You just want to tune into your heart and the sound of your own beat, the rhythm of your own breath. And this just unites us as a circle, as a people, connects us to all the other benevolent souls and energies and entities that want to assist us this night. And while you're focused and breathing and centered right there within your own heart, tune in to the most joyful experience you can remember at this moment. And really tune into the feeling. I explain this over and over, and I will continue to remind you that the way we create in the world, things may start with a thought, but they come into being because of our feelings and our emotions that we put behind the thoughts and ideas. There's a big difference between those 2 ways of bringing things into being. So we want to tune into that feeling as you tune into the most joyful, centered, elated, ecstatic feeling that you can remember in this given moment. It starts to flood your body with that feeling, and in turn floods the universe with more of that feeling, and it raises the frequency for everybody. And that's what we're doing here. So just some deep clearing breaths, getting centered, remembering the joy and fulfillment that you have experienced multiple times in your lifetime, looking to multiply that even further going forward. Tonight we're discussing planets as they go forward and allow us to come back out into the world and share what we've learned and be better people day in and day out. And now for the breath work for the evening. I did cheat a little again, and I went back to Carolyn Casey because I love her making the gods work for you. And I believe we did this too on that Jupiter-Saturn call, but we're going to call on some of her invocations for the major planets. And starting with Neptune, which went direct on November 1st, another 11-1-10 day, so lots of 1 energy. We are joined tonight on the 11-11 portal, which is extremely powerful. There are all kinds of articles and things out there for you to do research on the numbers, but 1s and 0s and numbers in general are a language like sacred geometry. It's another language that transcends all the dimensions and connects us to other worlds in a way that English or Spanish or other languages connect their people. So we're tuning into some infinite energy. And 1 is generally, my experience with it has been creativity and taking charge, and what we want to do is be responsible for ourselves and the collective as we move out and contribute. And for Neptune, which went forward on November 1st, we're going to claim this in our breath work, that through my vivid and infinitely creative imagination, I am constantly co-creating with the divine, the myriad richness of life's possibilities. I am dreaming the universe into being. Ashe. And we're going to breathe all that in. And for Neptune, we just want to breathe out all delusions, denials, deceptions, primarily self-inflicted, but certainly any from outside world. We're going to breathe all of that out. We're just going to let that go. And then for Uranus, we're going to breathe in. This affirmation says, I welcome the enlivening, illuminating, lightning bolt of revelation that zaps the circle of habit, turning it into the spiral of life's experimental evolutionary drive. Ashe, which means so it is. So we're going to breathe in that ability to tune in to this amazing liberation the planets are assisting us with. And where Uranus is concerned, we want to breathe out any blockages to change, to good, positive, healthy, balanced change. We don't want that blocked. We don't want to get stuck in routines that no longer nourish our life force. Uranus is here to awaken us from our sleepiness. And the combination of these two planets, as they are in what's called mutual reception, we're going to take a deep breath in and breathe in the ability to expand and evolve on both physical and spiritual levels. Breathe that in. We want to expand and evolve to next levels. And breathe out any and all fear of change or fear of the vastness of the universe. We are part of that. We shouldn't be afraid of that. So, to open with the Daily Guru of thedailyguru.com, I found everything is inextricably interconnected. With every change in thought, the shimmering network of manifest reality vibrates and is transformed. This is how connected we really, really are, everyone. Everything is inextricably interconnected. With every change of thought, the shimmering network of manifest reality vibrates and is transformed. This is what we are contributing to the whole, is getting to make ourselves stronger, more centered beings makes the whole stronger and more centered and balanced. And that's what we're shooting for here. Now, a little review. When planets retrograde means they appear to go backwards from our perspective here on Earth. And all of them except the Sun and the Moon do this, including the asteroids as well. And right now, tonight, we're going to discuss Neptune and Uranus, both going direct in the month of November. Today is November 11th, 2008. So we're right in the middle of these two. Neptune went direct on the 1st, right around the election, United States presidential election. And Uranus is going to go direct on the United States celebration of Thanksgiving, November 27th. So we had a lot of extra juice around both of these. And any time that planets are changing direction, whether they're going forward or backward, they sit still for a moment, which is called a station. And when they sit still, they gather juice and power. There's a lot of concentrated energy, which is a lot of the intensity we felt around the election. That was very, very intense. People are still feeling it. There are still some different things evolving and coming into the light as we speak. Neptune and Uranus are responsible for much of it, not all of it, but a lot of it. Pluto's in the mix as well. The reason we even care about whether planets are forwards or backwards or what they're doing is because it does assist us in directing our lives in a more conscious way. So when you know what's going on around you, theoretically, you should be able to make better decisions in the moment. So when they go backwards, there is this intuitive urge to pull in, to pull back, to go behind closed doors and do work in private. Now, that being said, the big planets that are considered to be Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto beyond Saturn, they're the farthest out and they take longer to move, so they affect collectives, they affect generations a little bit more than individuals. Now, that's not to say that they don't affect us individually, because they absolutely do, but they don't ping us quite as often. You get these little activations, well, they're big activations, but they only happen once in a while. For example, Uranus and Neptune are both spending several years in their respective signs, and mutual reception means that Neptune, which typically rules Pisces, is spending all this time in Aquarius from 98 to 2011, and Uranus, which rules Aquarius, is in Pisces from 2003 to 2011. So they're sharing a certain span of time, about 7 years. 7 years in anything is a complete cycle. If you wanted to track any part of your life, you could probably tune into a 7-year cycle and see how change occurs that way. Hence the 7-year itch and all kinds of different things that come into play that are part of our collective consciousness that we've picked up along the way. We don't even know where. That's all part of it. Now, both of these big boys do affect generations, do affect the collective, and every once in a while they'll tag you on your personal chart and shake things up. Neptune's about dissolving boundaries, and Uranus is about breaking through boundaries. So together, that is what this month is all about. And I'm sure everyone's feeling it in some form or fashion, that life is just no longer the same. And it won't be. And these different shifts and integrations and activations and things going on are going to continue to pile up and seem like rapid fire between now and 2012 and beyond. But it's going to be particularly intense as we're shifting here and now, as we move toward this shift in Earth's major cycle, the 26,000 year cycle. So that's all very, very big. Both of them retrograde every year. So here's my thing, and most of you know on the call tonight that I just really believe in getting in tune with the cycles. I think that this gives us permission to pull back when we really need to pull back, and that is just so divine. This gives us a schedule to work with, knowing where the planets are and what they're doing. You don't have to be an astrologer. You don't have to know any of the technical lingo. You just have to be intuitive and connected within so that you can feel when energy has shifted. I know plenty of souls, my friends and clients and students alike, that are clearly wired and connected. They don't need me to tell them a planet has moved. They call me and go, "What planet moved?" They already know. You already know. So in this instance, it was springtime when they went backwards. Now we're in November with them going forward. So all this time throughout spring and summer and the initiation of fall, we've been behind closed doors working on Neptune and Uranus issues, among others. But those are what we're going to focus on tonight. And like I said, every year we get a chance to do this. So when it happens for Neptune, what I'm going to do is cover Neptune and then Uranus and then the two of them together. And with Neptune, the retrograde is a time to let go and release old forms. Neptune dissolves boundaries. It has a lot to do, like I said, it typically rules Pisces, so it has to do with integrating the physical and spiritual part of you. This is collective consciousness. This is the womb of the collective, where the moon rules our individual wombs and how we as human beings come into being. The collective consciousness, that womb belongs to Neptune. And so when we're tuning in, that's how vast it can be. But this is our chance over the last few months. I'm sure you've had some forms just completely dissolved. Some ideas and concepts of security or reality all being dissolved to be rebuilt. And it's all divine order, so no panic. It's not part of this. This is your chance, though. When it was retrograde, we did a lot of delving into what our dreams are, what our vision is for our life. Everything was changing, and that is part of the combination of all the planets happening. But certainly when it goes backwards, it's time to review the vision of your life. As an individual, that's what I tell people to do during that time. And Neptune rules the far out and surrendering to a higher power, the awareness of you being the piece in a vast, vast whole, recognizing that connection, and any rough edges in your world, when things harden, there's a word, it's just not coming to me at the moment, but when things get that crusty, Neptune comes along with the energy of the ocean and dissolves it and just melts it away like water does. It's very, very subtle. It's not as shocking as Uranus likes to be. So we've got a combination here of hidden and obvious revelations going on between these two, especially with them backwards at the same time and then going forward around the same time. So with Neptune, we're expanding our consciousness. Expansion is an Aquarius principle here, and Neptune rules consciousness. And this is a reminder that source or spirit or God or whatever you would like to call it is part of you, that you are not separate from that source at all. And so we have to have these reminders along the way to not feel so disconnected. And that's what happens when Neptune's not balanced. You're very disconnected. Things can seem overwhelming, like you're drowning in the middle of the ocean kind of thing. That's when Neptune is too much. That's what it's doing. And I love Eric Francis is another astrologer who has a website called planetwaves.net. And he has an article on Neptune and Aquarius. And his teacher gave him several D names to remember when you're thinking about Neptune. And his D words are deception, delusion, denial, dreams, diffusion, dissolving, drugs, drink or drunk, drama. And he said to add drenched, because that is what happens. So we can feel like we need to ease up on some of this water. Like you really might feel like you're drowning at times when it gets like this. But paying attention, Neptune, because it blurs things, it confuses things. You're not sure because you're picking up all this different information. This is the challenge with Pisces sun people, is that their senses are so sharp that they're picking up information on 10 different levels, if not more. And it's hard to discern what's truth and what's not, and what's real and what's not for you in the 3D, etc. So that's all part of it. This is our reminder that your individual role affects the collective role. And this has all become common knowledge now, thank God, for the global community that's awakening as we speak. And you really have to think of it this way. We're all waking up from a very, very deep sleep, some of which are still asleep. And you can kick them and punch them and push them and roll them, and they won't wake up. It doesn't matter what you do to them. They sleep right through the storm outside the window. And that's the way that goes. All you can work on is you. Bring it back home. Always working on just you is key to not getting lost. So it's time for us to recognize any degree of refusing to adjust or refusing to change, because this is what happens as you harden your edges. Neptune's going to come through and say, but it's not just you, little one. You're not the only one involved. And it's going to dissolve those boundaries and reveal how every choice you make absolutely affects other souls along the way. And that's huge. That is huge. And we forget that in survival mode. And we forget that as we move through the world trying to be something or do something significant in the 3D. And we need to always take time out to remember Neptune, again, ruling Pisces. This is the Christ consciousness. This is spirituality in its most basic form. And it's our own sensitivity and intuition. Wherever Neptune lies, that is one of the places in your world where you can be most intuitive. But it's also a gray area. This is the place where you could be deluded as well. So you have to work on clarity. That's a challenge in those areas. So you have to put forth effort to remain clear. But remembering the connection to the whole is the key to Neptunian energy across the board. We're doing all this, like I said, the mutual reception has to do with, now think Pisces Aquarius. This is more in terms of that everybody can sort of visualize when we get away from planets you may not know so well, but I'm sure everyone here knows an Aquarius or a Pisces energy. With these two, Aquarius typically rules technology and Pisces typically rules spirituality. So we can see how before Uranus got into Pisces, it was in Aquarius, which is its home. It's where it rules it. So you think back to 96 to 2003 when the internet just blew up and all the technology got crazy. This is where we're constantly having to upgrade and changing and throw away stuff. Electronics are just, it went nuts. Now it's again, that kind of boom awakening. Okay, now that we have your attention, how can we make it useful? And when it moved into Pisces, we realized that we need to use technology. My personal opinion, I gotta say, is that we need to use technology as a tool. It does not replace the human, and it certainly does not replace spirit on any level. But it's a tool that as evolved beings, we could put to some very beautiful use, which we already have, connecting the World Wide Web and connecting us across the world to other souls, like-minded souls who want to join together for the healing of humanity, of Mother Earth. This is huge. We couldn't have talked to someone in an instant on the other side of the world even 10 years ago the way we can now. So keeping in mind that this was all part of our global evolution, and how are you evolving on the lower levels here as an individual? Paying attention, making it relevant for you at this time, recognizing how, again, your little being actually touches people across the globe that you would never even imagine 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or when you were first getting here and figuring out what you were capable of. You never probably even gave that a second thought. So now I'm going to encourage you to think bigger. Take whatever little piece or dream, since Neptune rules our dreams, and the possibilities and the oneness, and make it bigger. How can you do what you do on this level? And then how can you do it globally? How can you make it available to help and heal others around the world? Marinate that and see what you come up with. As planets, well, like I said, when they're backwards, we do a lot of review, and that's what's been going on the last 5 or 6 months across the board. Things have been revealed on many, many levels. I'm sure you've had your own revelations and aha moments as you've gone through. And now, as the planets go forward, it's time to go out in the world and apply what you've learned, take action steps on what you discovered about yourself, your abilities, your talents, your beliefs, your truth, your purpose. All of this was undergoing a review and work behind the scenes. So what have you been doing behind the scenes? Now, it's not over yet because we still got till the end of the month with Uranus still backwards. So we're still digging up things in Uranus's realm. We'll get to that next. But for Neptune, we're talking about revealing any self-deceptions, denials, delusions of grandeur. It's time to correct those going forward. And sometimes you can't even get to it without the retrograde. These are things that in normal consciousness, everyday world, survival mode, it's hard to even reach. And that always speaks to all the drugs and alcohol and food and television and all the Neptunian things that we turn to because we're overwhelmed. What we need to incorporate at this juncture is more balanced, intelligent ways of coping and dealing. This is like a Band-Aid on a broken arm. This is cold medicine. Cold medicine does not cure a cold. It suppresses the symptoms. Drugs do not really give you an escape. They just suppress the symptoms of what's going on around you so that it dulls your senses. That is not what Neptune wants. It does not want your senses dulled. It wants you tuned in and wired properly and connected so that you can sense when there's danger, or there's a time to move, or there's a time to do, or there's a time to be still and do nothing. This is going to be your compass going forward as we move through the transitional time, because trust me, as everything of the old is getting blasted out, there's debris everywhere, and there's chaos everywhere, and there's human beings walking through that are sleepwalking. They're totally asleep for all intents and purposes, but they're moving around in your neighborhood. It's challenging to navigate during transition. And just think of little transitions to major ones, just how crazy it is in between. Just think moving. Okay, moving is a major transition actually, but we're going to use it as a minor one compared to our global shift going on. Moving, it totally has to get worse before it gets better. Or cleaning your house. There's a simple mundane one. I have to pull stuff out to clean behind it and to clean under it. You know, it just gets worse before it gets better. So keeping that in mind, that at least the next 5 to 10 years, this is what's going on around you. So get okay with it now, because if you fight it, you're going to miss the blessings and the opportunities that are woven in to this chaos. And really, the people of the higher frequency, the people with the clarity, the people with the forethought and the vision and the balance and the ability to follow their intuitive natures, these are the ones that are going to be making moves and creating solutions for the collective. You are part of that. And I know that each of you has some stroke of brilliance brewing within you that you need to bring forth and share with the rest of us to make it all better across the board. So this is what you've been reviewing. Uranus has a lot to do with the liberation. How have you outgrown your circumstances? What do you want your circumstances to look like going forward in the new world? Because again, Kelly, reminder 21, I should number these, is when nothing's in place, then anything is possible. So tuning into the infinite possibilities, this is our chance to be heard, as it were, on a whole other level, where you can decide what structure is best going to serve you, and tuning into getting that built and getting that created. So with Neptune going forward, a lot of ahas are definitely coming to the surface. When it's retrograde, it's easier to connect within, and a lot of our delusions are revealed. Different ideas and concepts about security, that whole idea of drowning in the middle of the ocean type of thing, that all comes up. So a lot of us have felt that, certainly prior to the election, prior to November 1st, it was building up, and it was very intense, partly because of the station, partly because of Saturn and Uranus doing its thing that it only does every 45 years. And there are all kinds of factors contributing to the intensity that literally is only now starting to very minutely dissipate. And not even, I mean, because as soon as it eases up, something else comes along and amps it up again. So keeping in mind, this is the nature of the time, and you wouldn't be here if you didn't have something to contribute. So it's just time for you to get okay with the chaos and think, how can we create with it? How can we get something good out of this? Make it not be so random. May it have some intent behind it. And that's for you in your everyday world as you're connecting to your true vision and dream of possibilities. This applies to the individual, just like I said to the collective. Anything is possible right now. A lot of people I know, clients and people calling me, are changing jobs, they're changing spouses, they're changing location. Lots and lots of major change. So during this flux, you should be able to tune in to at least grounding some basic intentions. And so then we're back to creating with feeling. Don't worry so much about the structures. Don't worry so much about the tangible material objects. Tune into what you want to feel on a daily basis and work on creating that. Because really, we've all gotten caught up in our mind trips along the way and gotten us out of center and away from our heart. That's why that heart meditation is so powerful, to bring you right back to your own rhythm. It is okay to move to your own rhythm. It's great when you can dance with others, and it's beautiful when it works. But there's nothing wrong with dancing by yourself. Nothing at all. So tuning in to a new vision of your being, of your community, of the community you want to be a part of, that you want to contribute to. This is the big shaping going on. And then thinking in terms of the year. Now, I personally work from spring equinox to spring equinox, so my calendar year is a little off compared. But for 2008, I did go back to January and did a little review from then till now, and it was extremely powerful in terms of an exercise to reveal much more that I got accomplished than I gave myself credit for or was consciously aware of. I do these things, and then I'm on to the next thing, and I don't even realize how much I've actually gotten done in the course of a year. You can do that as you review. This is why journaling is so useful. I know that a lot of people are inconsistent with journaling, but whatever you can do that can just jog your memory of major events and twists and turns in your world, being able to look back 3, 6, 9, and 12-month increments becomes very, very useful going forward in terms of choices and laying groundwork for forward movement, which is where we are. When we're doing retrogrades, we're doing a review, but now they're about to go forward. What action steps do you want to take in early 09 when opportunities do start to present themselves and when the energy is supportive of forward movement? Right now, we're still clearing the decks. We're still completing old tasks. We're still processing the information that came up over the last 5 to 6 months or a year. And so big, huge moves that can be not avoided but postponed for better circumstances that support the forward movement you're really visualizing would be good. Right now it's about clearing the old and clearing the decks and clearing your energy, clearing your body, your aura, your mind, tuning back into heart. We're getting out of linear and more into heart-centered everything. Heart-centered work, heart-centered play, heart-centered rests. It's time for us to be more natural and in tune with the cycles. And as you do that, life and all its changes become totally natural. So nothing's good or bad about them. They're just natural. This is the season. This is what happens every year. The season changes 4 times, or depending on where you live. Getting used to it just being natural. So this is our chance to do a little review of the last 5 or 6 months. What delusions did you come up with that you recognize within your own being as completely erroneous and groundless, based in whatever, based in your genetics, based in your past, based in your conditioning, based in your neighborhood? I have a lot of people from the so-called United States Bible Belt totally starving for connection, an evolved version of spirituality, and they're still having trouble finding it in those neighborhoods. So there's a lot of that. You might be living in a place that no longer suits your nature. You know, nothing against the Bible Belt, but I'm just saying that I'm getting a lot of calls from that area that they're so excited to have found a community like the Power Circle to be a part of, and we're excited to have them. But wherever you are, big cities versus country living, all of that different things, feeling your being and figuring out where you would be most happy, peaceful, and productive, where you can actually contribute to the evolution. It's all coming up for review here. Let me plant the seed now that November 27th, when Uranus goes direct, all the way to December 31st, which is only a month. That is a mere 4-week period. That is the only month of the year, 2008, where all the planets are going forward. This is our opportunity. Like I said, maybe not tangible forward movement, but definitely a great time to ground intentions. And what's happening is, after all the flux and change that went on this year, including Pluto's major move into Capricorn, this is once in 300 years type of move, and the Saturn-Uranus thing is once in 43, 45 years. There's some major stuff that's happened in the last 6 months that we are a part of and living through and co-creating with, and trying to be as grounded and centered as possible as we move through it. But it's basically blasted all of your known affinities and things. I read somewhere in one of my articles, I think on Uranus, where the crutches that we lean on, it likes to kick it out from under you and then break it in half and go, now figure out how to get across the room. You know, it's just, we're being forced to learn how to walk and talk all over again. You can smile and make it a party, or you can get twisted and clench up, close down, and try to avoid the inevitable, but you cannot win that way, and that's not the way I recommend going with this flow. This is the kind of thing where you get on the roller coaster and you're going up and you've changed your mind, but it's too late, so you might as well throw your arms in the air and scream. Whee! Here we go. I call it the Kelly coaster. And we add loop-de-loops here and there, and you're stuck on this ride since you're here, so you might as well enjoy some of it as best you can. With Neptune, you're altering your vision. You know, what you started out with at the beginning of the year, is that vision still current and correct for you? And after all that's been revealed, because that's been a lot of the last 6 months, has been revealing everyone's true nature. That's yours and everyone else's. So you're starting to see other people. What's happening is not so much that these natures have been hidden or suppressed or whatever, but it's the blasting that's going on. It's taking away all our known and the parameters that we're used to, and the habits that have served us well in the past that just cannot serve us going forward. They're taking away a lot of that, and you find out in being stripped of the non-essential, because now we've accumulated all this madness. Now it's time to strip it away and see what you're really made of. So yes, there's lots of secrets and deceptions and things being revealed on one level, on the collective political level, yes. But on a personal level, you're being revealed and others around you are being revealed for what they're really capable of, what they're really dedicated to, what's actually important to them. Because you have to remember, the universe does not distinguish. So when you are giving your time and energy to drama and trauma, the universe thinks this is where your priority is. This is where you want to be, because you keep choosing to participate on these levels. If you don't want that to be part of your reality, then you have to stop putting your primary resources into that type of energy, which is your time, your energy, and of course, sometimes includes your money as one of the resources. So remembering that time and energy are primary resources that are precious. They are very precious, and however you spend those is translating to the universe as what's important to you. So if you haven't been living congruent within and without, these two planets in particular are going to force you to get in alignment. And in order to do that, they're going to shine a big bright light on the areas where things are amiss and get you very, very present to what part of your vision is not making any sense and you're kind of deluded about. So opening up to that, preparing for that, thinking in terms of Aquarius and Neptune. Like I said, this is the individual and the collective in a huge way. So yes, there are very special, unique talents just to you, but how can they be useful to the collective? If you're living just for you, that's going to be a different kind of way to go. But you will be far better supported when you in all your splendor is serving the collective on some level. Not where you're giving it all away and not feeding yourself and there's no balance. Not that extreme giveaway stuff. Not servant, service. There's a difference. You take time. On the retrogrades is when I recommend the most is to pull back and replenish. So with Neptune, this is when you would replenish your system. Think Pisces, Virgo. We're replenishing and healing in a huge way our intuitions and our sensitivities, and sometimes, especially now with all the change going on, being bombarded with that pullback was necessary. And I know I for one definitely pulled back in the last 6 months and stopped allowing the bombardment of information and energies to come in so much, because we all have our own processing going on right now. And so that's enough. Just deal with your process. Don't worry about anyone else's process. And always, always constantly remind yourself that you can't control anyone else, their process or their response to your process or any of it. All you can do is you. The rest of it is outside of your control, and so really shouldn't be taking up too much of your time and energy beyond that. So for Uranus, moving through Pisces all this time, again, that mutual reception, what's deep about this, and Neptune's coming on the rear now. Neptune's going through Aquarius for 98 to 2011, and I didn't write down the dates, but then it's going to go into Pisces for several years. Then that's going to hit Aries. Now Uranus is finishing up Pisces in 2011 and starting Aries. So radical shift is an understatement. So I am warning you now. 2012 is no joke. It is just no joke. It is so beyond what little pieces we may have read along the way of this one alignment or that one alignment. There are 100 different alignments going on that are major. Not one of them is minor. And this is one of them. This is a major planet that takes 84 years to make it through the zodiac. It has now made it through the zodiac, and it's about to start Aries fresh. So keeping that in mind, it's almost like a reset button. It's a reboot. It's a completely new cycle. I mean, there's our personal cycles and where it fits into us. But Aries is the beginning, and that is new, fresh baby, newborn, everything. And Uranus is radical, radical shift. So keeping in mind, I know this is a little big to process, but again, the whole point of dealing with the planets or understanding where they are, what they're doing, is to assist us in planning our lives and making better choices for our own individual beings and the community to which we belong. So in this regard, we are completing a major cycle. And how do you want to go forward? How do you want that rebirth, that liberation, because it's Uranus in Aries, complete brand spanking new rebirth to go? And where do you want to be when that hits? Okay, keeping in mind that all babies are usually taken care of, even the ones that are left to the side or abandoned in some way. Somebody takes care of them, so we will be fine. It's just a completely new day and a new definition of freedom and liberation, because that's what Uranus rules, the awakening and the aha and that electrical connection to ourselves and to spirit and to the planet. It's all part of Uranus's domain. It rules awareness and enlightenment and change, reflects the lesson of the signs. Pisces is let go and let God, and to remember your sensitivity levels. You don't want to be so insensitive to others, but hypersensitive for yourself. That happens a lot with Pisces energy. We project. And so we're very, very, very sensitive about our own feelings, but then we blurt crazy things out. And that Virgo critical thing seeps in there and comes right out your mouth. And you don't even realize that now you've hurt someone else's feelings without meaning to. So keeping in mind, the whole lesson of Pisces is to let go and let God. And Uranus is the awakening, remembering that you're connected to a much bigger picture than you see on a moment-to-moment, day-to-day basis. So when it's forward with Uranus, it's also those genius ideas and things. So when it's forward, those ideas flow and they do their thing. But now it's been retrograde. And I don't know about y'all, but I've been stacking up ideas for the last 6 months. Oh my God. It's like somebody turned on the faucet and just let it go. There's been so many creative ideas, and it's not just me, because I'm talking to lots of other people that have been feeling this flow. It's just been amazing. But when you're retrograde, you can't do anything about them. It's very challenging anyway to do any. They're blocked kind of at every turn. So this has been the gathering of juice and ideas and concepts that now when it goes forward, and this means pretty much into the end of January 09, I think is going to push us forward out into the world where we'll get to try some of these ideas out and see how they do. But that's when it could hit all at once. Thanksgiving Day, you could have some kind of blast of opportunity that just shows up the minute it goes forward. But I think it's going to take a month or two to work its way in. But that's what happens. As soon as it goes forward, all of a sudden this idea that was kind of mediocre behind the scenes blasts out into the collective consciousness and becomes huge, huge. Think about the Googles and the Dells and all the young people that had this one little seed of an idea that was nothing, 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 and then blast. I bet you if we looked it up, we could correlate it with the retrogrades. We should do that. But anyway, the womb of creation is also Pisces domain with Uranus. We're recreating our whole concept of this planet, of community, of humanity living as one. So we can seed a lot of these ideas. And that was a lot of the work I did throughout the election time, was tuning in to the joy and the elation, the excitement for a new day, and the promise. This is all just possibilities. None of it is actually a reality on the grand scale just yet. But the work has been laid out before us, and we know that now the work really begins, where we actually learn in practical everyday application how to live in harmony with each other. And charity begins at home. So we have to start in our own communities, in our own neighborhoods, and then branch out to the state, to the country, to the other countries, etc. But we have to start here. And remembering that oneness, Uranus it's another divine connection and rules spirituality from another angle. It's so important. And the growth that we've been experiencing from 2003 to 2011 while Uranus has been traveling through Pisces, recognizing that the challenges to grow have come at times when we have our ideas and our truth, and then purifying the system. We're talking Gemini, Sag, and Virgo energies all challenge Pisces in one form or another. And the challenges make us grow. And that's what's happened now. All of our ideas and our versions of truth have been totally challenged over the last several years. So we're having these sudden realizations that Uranus brings that radical shift of perception. So what is your perception? Your perception of your life, of your life's work, of your creative projects, of your families, of your friends, of your own community and the people that you participate with on a regular basis. Remember now, it's all kind of relative. And perception goes directly to each individual filter. And we've talked about this too before, cleaning our filters. We have to take that out. I did not know this until I got one of those, emails that go around the universe with 10 household tips, whatever. And it turns out when you clean the filter in the dryer, you take the lint off and you put it back in and you think you've cleaned it. But over time, there's a waxy buildup that happens on that filter. And if you try this at home, theoretically, you go to run some water through it, it won't go through because of the waxy buildup. So you have to take soap and water and actually scrub it, rinse it, and then the water will flow through and you know that your filter's actually clean. This is what we need to do with our personal individual filters. Because remember, even me doing the astrology stuff, this is through Kelly's filter. So you're getting some Kelly spin on all of it, because this is just my opinion of the possibilities that these planets are laying out before us. This is not the way, the truth, and the light, and by no stretch of the imagination is it the only way to go. What we discuss in the Power Circle is purely ideas and possibilities. That's it. But recognizing where your filter needs to be actually scrubbed. Okay, so you check in once in a while. Great, that's beautiful. On a regular basis, even better. Wonderful. But have you actually scrubbed it lately? And that means, remember now, our filters develop this gunk through our conditioning, through our DNA, through our biology, through our parents and siblings and all the different influences of the world. Once we come out into this 3D and start collecting data, that gunks up the filter. So we're cleansing that, because truly, truly, the new world we're moving into is not going to even slightly resemble where we've been living all along. Not even slightly. So expand, expand, expand your concept of possibilities, because they are truly limitless. And the only limitations we have are the ones that we ourselves put on it. So check yourself and your filter as you go, because this is what all this Neptune, Uranus, Pisces, Aquarius stuff is digging up for everybody. How are you perceiving your life? Because this is a lot of it. This is why people get stuck in depressions, because their perception is that it's the end of the world. And I've spoken to this a lot, especially with the Saturn-Uranus thing going on, because the last time that it happened this big time was the 60s, and prior to that was 40 years prior to that was the 20s, and we had the Depression, and a lot of people, just like they're doing now, killed themselves because they could not see a solution to whatever their problems were. And we've all had the dark night of the soul, and we've all had those moments where we hit the wall and go, what is the point? How do you get yourself up and out of bed and moving again the next day? But you have to. If you're here and you ever believed in your gift, now is the time to really, truly believe and own it. And just, first of all, life is too short. Even if you don't go all the way that you thought you might go, enjoy the journey. Enjoy this process. Enjoy the discovery. Enjoy change. We resist it so much. And again, that comes from conditioning, because I personally will 1, 2, 3 switch in a minute on folks. And not to test the universe, but I do like change at regular intervals. And I'd rather choose it most of the time, but I can take my punches and roll with the punches when I have to. And now is definitely one of those times. So revisioning your whole world and your truth. Like I said, Pluto's been digging up that truth concept for 13 years. What have you believed and held on to that you're just not ready to let go of? It's time to let it go. It really is, because trust me, this is like people who come to me looking for love. When am I going to get married, or when am I going to find the love of my life, and all this kind of thing. Not that I can answer those questions, so don't all of you hang up and write me emails about finding the love of your life. But my point is that they need to clear out whoever they're holding on to very often before the love of their life can come in. So same thing applies to your dream job or your dream contribution to society, whatever that may be. If you're busy over here doing XYZ, that's taking up the space that the universe would normally consider putting something into. And remember, we're getting out of masculine, do, force, make things happen, into feminine. You want to clear out a space, creating someplace warm and inviting and delicious, like feminine energy is coming through both men and women, and invite whatever it is you would like to have in that space. And that goes for love of your life, or the dream job, or the dream home, or what have you, whatever, wherever your consciousness is at the moment. It is time. And so recognize where you're holding on to old values and old truths and old belief systems that really just can't serve you in the new world. So you have to let them go. And you have to get this experimental idea through your head that it's kind of fun to experiment and not so daunting, and trying new and different things to see if they work. Because this is what's going to happen while nothing is in place, is we don't really know what's going to work. So what are we going to do? Be paralyzed and freeze and not try anything new and different? You got to try and see if it works. And at the moment, a lot of us have had so much loss that I sort of throw my hands up and go, what do you have to lose? You know, we've already lost most of what was near and dear. So we're starting completely new and from scratch anyway. Might as well enjoy it. This Uranus Pisces is definitely kicking out the whole concept. It's blasting it to bits of victim consciousness. This goes for within and without, but Uranus is blasting it, and Pisces is the energy that usually is the martyr and holds on to the whole victim concept. It's just that energy. Think Christ consciousness. He was the martyr. That's how it goes. You sacrifice and you sacrifice and you give and give and give. To what end? What is all that pouring out really creating in the world? So this is where I get back to giving everyone permission to be selfish. It's not selfish, it's essential. You want your energy to be productive. You don't want to just be pouring out and pouring out. In Pisces' case, it's usually to be seen as the good person, or again, these perceptions. What we want is to remember our connection to Source. Anytime Pisces is activated, that's what the reminder is. We are connected to an infinite, abundant, loving Source that we need no translators for. We need no equipment to contact. We have all the equipment we need in our beings. And it is time to release. We're moving out of the Piscean age, which was a lot of religion and victim and power over, moving into Aquarian age, where it's individual responsibility and the good of the community becomes number one. For the good of the group, everyone's going to behave and do their part. This is what we're heading toward. So releasing your victim consciousness, releasing any need to victimize others or to impose your power. Very often, the people that do the most imposing of power on others are because they feel so powerless. And that's the only time we feel the need to control, is when we feel most out of control. So you know when you see a control freak coming that they really have no control over their lives because they're so busy trying to control your life. And that is the energy we're moving out of and away from. But understand, at the change of ages, this is a world age. I think it's something like 5,000 years or something. It's huge. It is going to look very chaotic and probably be very uncomfortable. But it can be interesting too. It doesn't have to be all death and destruction. And that's another affirmation and claim that we want to connect to and create a mantra around, is we no longer need to learn through tragedy and loss. We no longer need to learn that way. Okay? Opening up to our lessons being a little bit gentler and a little bit more easy to integrate. Just opening up. And a lot of that has to do with our own resistance and our own holding on and clutching of old ideologies or old belief systems or old habits and patterns. Uranus comes along to break up the patterns. So if you have any kind of addictions going on, if you have any bad behavior patterns, if you can see a pattern, I know I manifested the husband I'm with now when I recognized a complete pattern I repeated twice right before meeting him. And I was determined to break that. And I broke that, and I ended up with the love of my life. So it works when you work it. It works when you're conscious and dedicated and centered on you. I didn't ask anyone else to change. I went in and said, okay, you keep attracting this. You keep making these choices. You are the one that has to change. And I did. And it took some practice. And yes, it was uncomfortable at first, and it didn't feel right, quote unquote right. It didn't feel natural. Of course it didn't, because I was doing it wrong all the rest of the time. And I thought that was natural. I thought that was right. And that's what we're all waking up to. There's nothing essentially wrong. Let me not get caught up in language here. There's nothing essentially wrong with how you've been living, but is it effective? Is it bringing you the peace and the joy and the abundance that is yours by divine right? If it's not, then it needs some tweaking, and that's okay. And the only person that can tweak it is you. So it's up to you to make new choices in the moment when faced with a choice to go down an old road or a new one. And while you don't know quite where the new one's going to lead you, man, dude, you've already done the old one. Live the adventure. I say go for it. Really, at this point, how much more do we have to lose? You just have to tune into this adventurous part of you. You have to tune into the possibilities. You have to tune into the knowing that you're connected to Source at all times. And it is God's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. This is all part of it. We just have to balance out our 3D. We have to balance out our humanity. The flesh is weak. It is prone to wanting certain delicious foods that may not be totally good for us. But I'm of the mind that all things in moderation. You're not going to drink yourself into a stupor, but a glass of wine or a beer here and there is not the end of the world. It is when things get excessive that you throw your balance out of whack and you have no concept of where you are anymore, and then you're lost in the middle of the ocean about to drown. And that's the feeling that can come up. But Uranus is here to break all the patterns and all the different victim consciousness we've been through over the years, addictions, bad choices, repetitive choices that don't serve you anymore. There is some part of your being that wants the change and obviously has set certain things up for lessons that way. but you won't necessarily volunteer or do it on your own. So Uranus is the blast. Uranus is the one that comes in and creates the friction or the situation or the crisis that gets you moving. And just like the U.S. election, I'm going to be riding everybody about this too. Just because we got the man elected does not mean that he can fix everything. It's personal responsibility. It's personal action. When you do have a crisis that forces you to change some aspect of your being or your life or your environment that you have probably already known for some time that it needed to change, but you didn't have the energy or the time or the resources or whatever, now Uranus will come along and create a situation that forces you to change. And then what happens very often with humans, because we are creatures of habit, is we make that change, we survive that crisis, we get through it, and then we go right back down to our sleeping old habit ways. And that's what we cannot do going forward toward this shift of the ages and being alive at this monumental historical time. Do not go back to sleep, everyone. This whole wake up and awakening that we're all experiencing together, yes, it's manifesting differently for each individual, but collectively, the world has woken up in such vast numbers that even the slumbering ones aren't going to be able to slumber much longer. They're going to have to wake up too, because we're moving stuff around and we're bulldozing stuff out of here, and you can't sleep through the wrecking ball. It's just time. So checking out how you have been pushed beyond your boundaries, beyond your limits. That's Uranus, Neptune, Pluto's domain. That's beyond the limits of what, remember I said how the outer planets affect collectives. They take longer to facilitate change, tangible, visible change. It takes a little longer to do these major shifts. You wouldn't want this done in a day. Absolutely not. So be grateful for the natural unfolding and processes that Spirit has lined up and given us here on and around planet Earth. In this particular galaxy, it's just so beautiful. Anytime Uranus is moving around, whether it's going forward, backward, or activating your personal chart, what it's actually doing is bringing things that were in the unconscious up to the conscious mind and out into the light to be changed. That's part of its job, is to help us facilitate necessary, safe change. Again, you might not do it on your own, so Uranus comes along to help, and we want to give thanks and gratitude for that. I want you to think back to June and certainly now November. So we're looking at the month before and the month after. So May, June, July, and October, November, December. This is for Uranus, bringing in new freedom, new sense of awareness, aha, awakening, liberation, liberating you from some, whether they're self-imposed or outer-imposed chains that have been holding you hostage or holding you in one place or not allowing you to move. What are the events that happened before it went retrograde and right after? And what are the events, major life events happening around this time as it goes forward? These are going to be clues to help you access a new level of freedom. Uranus rules our freedom. And remember, we're tuning into the feeling. One of my latest affirmations, I think we discussed this on the last call, is a man is rich who rules his day. And for those of us with our own business, yes, we have a lot of work to do, and yes, there's always a lot of work to do, and we really could literally work 24/7. But we own our day, and we can schedule it any way we see fit. That is an amazing blessing. That is an amazing blessing. So tuning into your language, your feelings, how you determine your mood for that day. Where do you need the most freedom? How can you feel free? What makes you feel free? You might not even know. You might not have ever even given this any thought. I need to feel free to schedule my day. So that's why I decided to work for myself. There are certain things that are very important to me. What is most important to you in terms of your quote unquote freedom? And trust me, look at the United States and what's going on right now. This is on the table, freedom across the board. And you need the energy to break repeat patterns. Uranus is going to assist in that. The antidote to the Pisces energy, which is the victim consciousness or being overwhelmed or being too sensitive and too much information and too many different vibrations around you, is Virgo. Get practical, get organized, get methodical, and do the healing, the purification aspect of healing, correcting and balancing, rebalancing your inner and outer systems. Virgo rules the systems, and keep in mind that Saturn is opposite Uranus, so the answer to any extreme radical Uranus action going on is to tune into Saturn, which is foundation, basic, 1, 2, 3 kind of energy. Simplify. When in doubt, simplify no matter what. That always will help. If you strip off the extraneous and get down to the bare essentials, what are you working with? What are your resources? What are your talents? What are your abilities? What's your mobility? Are you able to move around and do what you need to do? Most importantly, as this awakening occurs, do not go back to sleep. Do not go back to the old patterns. Catch yourself when you're slipping. Correct everything as you go. As you go. You cannot help negative thoughts popping into your mind, but you can re-say them and rethink them in that moment. And trust me, after years of this, it really does become a habit to correct negative thoughts. And what happens after that is they stop coming. They don't come in like that anymore. You don't even think that way anymore, because now you have disconnected that neural pathway and reconnected and strengthened a completely new neural pathway, which is totally Uranus's domain. So keeping that in mind, returning to source and spirit, any old dreams or desires that you've been doing out of habit, check yourself. They may not be valid anymore, and they may not be valid in the new world that you're moving into or the new being that you're becoming. And just tuning into as much balance as you possibly can think of. And recognizing how Neptune's kind of subtle and silent. So this is what's also working during this time of change. There are still things unseen. Think about the ocean. And I don't know how many of you have ever caught the documentaries of the ocean and going into the deep, and how they have all these wild creatures down at the bottom that light up and do all kinds of weird. They seem like aliens to us and to what we're used to seeing in our little limited, teeny tiny, limited space of existence, where we get to see 2 or 3 fishes in our lifetime. There's millions of other species way deep down below the surface, and Neptune rules the ocean. So remember that while we're shifting and moving, there are major things still unseen and unknown to us at the moment. And that's okay. I'm not trying to instigate that Piscean fear, but I'm just trying to make you aware that being conscious in your own realm and controlling your own being, which is all you got, is where you need to stay grounded and centered, because there's still some things at work, and change isn't easy. And there are people who resist it and fight it and believe that their way, the old way, the traditional way, is best. But essentially, humanity has outgrown that, literally and figuratively. We have expanded beyond the original boundaries and confines and borders that essentially never existed, but now we know it. It's been brought out from the unconscious into the consciousness through, thank you, Uranus. That's who we have to thank for that one. And there really are no borders. They're borders because we agreed to say that there are borders to our states, to our countries, to our continents, whatever. But it's all one planet Earth. It's all one. Human beings is one species. That's one species, billions of little pieces of it, but it's one species. So keeping that vastness in mind, recognizing the timing. Let's go through the chart a little bit and see how we can ground our intentions for the month. I really, if nothing else translates tonight, I need that to translate the most, from Thanksgiving to New Year's. Despite all the holiday brouhaha, which I suspect too will take on a whole new vibration this year for everyone. Now we have this one little window of 08. Remember all the 1 energy we're working with. 2 and 8 is 10. That's 1 and 0. 0 is infinity. 1 is infinite creativity. We are so connected and well supported for truly, truly, truly bringing in change in a tangible form. So for November 1st, Neptune's direct chart, we went through some of this it's probably very similar. I don't have the Saturn-Uranus chart in front of me, but it's probably pretty close since it's only 3 days apart. We have Leo ruling it, so self-love is at the top of the list. For Neptune, for connecting to your vision, for moving forward on your vision, for recreating your life anew and tuning into new dreams and hopes for the future, getting your connectedness going. First, you want to connect within, you and source. Start there. Then you connect out into the oneness of humanity, to the big community, to the global community, and expand from there. But let's start within, and the primary tone of this chart for Neptune, this is where the energy was most intense. And if we just look at the cross quarters, Leo is ruling the whole entire chart, which means love, heart, love, heart. This is the base of the whole concept. And as you move through, Saturn's moving things around in our values sector, helping us reshape our fundamental values. What used to be important is not so important anymore, and things that we used to take for granted have now become huge priorities in everyday life.
The home, sacred space, has got some action down there with Scorpio. We're recreating our definition of home. And if you missed the Access Your Ancestors, I highly recommend it because we had a whole guided meditation on coming home and the whole idea of redefining what home is. Because just think, now that you're a global citizen of the world, home has a whole new definition. So tune into that. The bulk of the energy for November 1st was all grouped up in the 5th house, which is, again, Leo's domain, so we're still in love-based, but it's got Sag ruling it. So we got 2 double fire, so that creative fire is kicking. Now that Neptune is going forward, you really can create some new visions for yourself and recreate your dream in a whole new way that will serve on a much higher level. Again, think bigger. Everyone, think bigger. Start small and do it in increments and stages, and recognize that's how you want to grow and then integrate, and then grow and then integrate. It's like gathering information at school. You gather information and then you're tested, and then you learn something from all your tests in life and in school as to what you remembered correctly and what you didn't. Then you integrate that and you go learn some more, and then you're tested again. Think of those terms when you're doing your dream work and formulating the vision for your life for the long term. Think in smaller bites that you can manage, but keeping the big picture in mind. And with the creativity in here, with all supported with Neptune going forward, this is so delicious. This is so delicious. First of all, it's all Sag energy. We've got Venus, which is again our community and our interconnectedness, our interrelatedness in Sag, new truth, new definitions of that, and a much higher version of it. Moon is our emotional nature, very close. It's at 26 degrees Sag, which is next to Pluto at 29 degrees Sag. So we're transforming our values and what's important to us. We're transforming love and money. Moon, we're transforming our inside to our outside, all of the above. And creativity, Venus rules art and creativity in the 5th house, creative fire, all this juice and delicious, delicious, transformative juice. So whatever you're creating, whatever you're connected to, it is an expression of you, but it must serve also on the higher levels and serve your community in other ways. So thinking bigger, broadening your perspective. Juno's one of the divine feminine goddesses. The asteroids is just beginning in Capricorn, still in the 5th house with this other delicious trio. But what that says to me is Juno rules what we're deeply wedded and committed to. Capricorn is our contribution to society, but it's also stability in the foundation. So using all that creative fire and juice and Neptune and the extra juice of its station to revision your life and stabilize it. We're committed to that stability, but we know that fire is part of it, and getting creative is part of it, and changing our emotional dynamics is going to be part of it as well. Our emotional responses to our creative projects, not scrapping it before you allow it some time to marinate and get flavorful. This is another thing we as creative people, we do, is the vision doesn't quite manifest physically the way it was in our mind, and so we scrap it all together. Stop that. Don't do that anymore. There's always a piece of that original vision that's useful. Even if you need to scrap a lot of it, there's still a piece in there that's directly connected to your success and the success of your dream or your vision. And then the healing trio, Neptune is specifically on this November 1st date in the 7th house. So again, we're healing our relationships. And this is huge because we are here. As you heal your being, the people you come in contact are going to respond to that energy. Whether they know it or not, whether they can articulate it or not, that's irrelevant. But they will feel the difference. But in these terms, we have been seriously healing our self versus other principle and that lesson and that integration. And it's ruled by Leo Aquarius. So again, it's getting out of your narrow self vision to connecting to your own heart to be the light and contribute to the community in a greater way. And Aries is ruling the 10th house of career and contribution to society. So again, I feel like the work is up to us as individuals. We are not going to be able to rely on family or friends or governments or institutions or other structures that are all undergoing a makeover. It's up to you. Aries is independence, courage of your convictions, and overcoming fear of new beginnings. And we are going to have so many new beginnings over the next several years. Brand spanking new, never been seen before new beginnings that you need to adjust now and get used to that concept now so that it's not so overwhelming, so that it doesn't blow your circuits and shut you down. It is a good thing. It is not a bad thing. It's a natural thing, and this is positive forward movement as you tune in and allow the non-essential to leave your life, to leave your body, mind, and spirit. We're releasing all of that. Now, Uranus's chart, as it goes direct November 27th, all the planets have moved big time. They are all very, very extremely concentrated in the 11th, 12th, and 1st house. So alone, thinking in terms of the karmic wheel, 1 being the beginning, 12 being the completion, we are looking at the completion and rebirth all at the same time. Dominant energies, lessons is Sag, Capricorn, and Aquarius. So we are working through our lesson of truth and how we are all connected. Sagittarius is the energy and lesson of realizing that all religious beliefs and philosophies and codes of being and ethics and all those things, the essential seed of them is the same throughout all cultures. It's a human thing that unites them. And there's always a thread of continuity that weaves through all of them that allows us to break through all boundaries that Uranus is assisting with that break as well. This is assembling, redefining our truth and what we believe and hold as sacred. And this is part of the spiritual growth and spiritual quest. This is part of Uranus facilitating the awakening. In the 11th house is community and friends and hopes and dreams. All of that's taking on a whole new hue. It's got a whole new philosophy behind it, behind how you choose your friends, how you choose the community to belong to and to contribute to, how you choose your hopes and dreams and make them happen. How all that comes into being is shifting in its essential spiritual nature and its philosophical nature and how it can breathe truth into it, as it were. And the completion comes. Sagittarius is ruling both the 11th and the 12th house. So we're talking truth where our friends and hopes and dreams are concerned, and truth where our 12th house and completion. What's done is done, people. Let it go. If it's people, circumstances, habits, jobs, clothes, objects, material objects, whatever it is, there is a lot that is truly, truly done. And there's a part of you that knows it's done. And there may be a part of you holding on. If there is a part of you holding on, talk to that part of you and talk some sense and get them to let go gently as possible, because if you don't let it go, it is going to get snatched and it's just going to get ripped out of your world. And that's no fun for anybody. Nobody likes to have their lives ripped apart. So trying to get centered enough to co-create with the energies that are available, this is it. Capricorn is a lesson of responsibility for your actions. So it is definitely karma time. And we get to the 12th house, it is definitely a review of your entire cycle. This is very, very powerful. This is going to reveal a lot of ahas. So we're talking the whole month of November and the whole month of December and to January, where you're going to have this line of communication open and operators are standing by to take your calls. Just check in with how responsible you are being for your own structure and foundation and for completing this leg of your journey. And initiating anew is ruled by Capricorn, which is so beautiful, because if you get the truth together and you rewire your being and your community, your idea of community and your idea of returning back to the womb and back to the source, that's all 12th house domain. If you rework that with the Sag energy, which is fiery, creative, amazing, joyful, optimistic, expansive, because you're really expanding your consciousness right now as we speak into realms you may not have been dipping in lately or ever. So keeping that in mind. But Capricorn rules this chart. So stability is coming. Yeah, I promise. There are ways. It's just not going to look like what it used to look like. The old Capricorn, we are revamping that look. And now we're looking for solid, soulful, connected, stable, not erratic and crazy. This is our chance to tune into that. And Jupiter's still there too. So Jupiter again rules our truth and our story. So what is the story you want to complete this year? What's the Capricorn piece of how you are responsible for where you are no matter what? No matter what it looks like at this moment, owning it automatically unlocks the gate to changing it. If you can't even own the fact that you got yourself to wherever you are, good, bad, or indifferent, then you can't shift gears or change directions on any level, because you're still feeling like a victim, like people are pushing you this way and that way, and it's not your doing. And all these things are happening to you. And nothing happening to you. There's a part of your soul that has chosen the people that you're dealing with and the circumstances that you're living through to assist in your growth and development. The sooner you get it, the sooner it will ease up. The sooner you can own it and be responsible for all of it, the sooner you can make some new choices. And that's just universal law. That's the way that goes. And the healing trinity is still in the first house. So as we are grounding this new reality, which is essentially what we're doing, Uranus has blasted the old reality out. And what we get a chance to do for that whole month between November 27th and December 31st, 2008, is ground the intentions for our new reality. What do you want it to actually look like? Think Capricorn. Think structure, foundation, long-term stability by your own definition, and remembering that the old definitions don't apply. Okay? The old definition of stability meant the same thing over and over for years to come. The new definition of stability is being so strong in your core and your being that no matter what's going on in the world, you're still stable. It's within you. It's not outside of you. It has nothing to do with where you live or what's going on around you. It has to do with inside. We are rewiring from the inside out and reconnecting things that got disconnected for whatever reason, survival mode, etc. And we're rewiring all that to be more useful and effective in the world we live in now, here and now, today. That's all part of it. And first house is new everything, rebirth everything, new being, new vocations, new objects, new lessons, new everything. So keeping that all in mind, that you can do it. With Capricorn ruling, it's still got to be heart-based, because remember, the antidote to any imbalanced Capricorn is going to be Cancer, getting back to your gut, your empathic nature, being able to feel what's necessary. Cancer's ruled by the moon and the feelings. Capricorn wants tangible results, so we have access to creating this tangible reality that we've been dreaming up in our minds and tweaking as we go. Now we can make it tangible going forward. That month is seriously beautifully supported for setting some amazing, amazing intentions. And Saturn, the whole Saturn-Uranus thing is over the 2nd and 8th house. So again, with our values and resources and regenerating life, we're going to regenerate life from the ashes. I assure you, everyone. I assure you. This is where we are right now as we speak. Now for the divinations, and we will wrap this up. I did the medicine cards, and I was thinking about the whole concept because we're getting together now during the going direct. So for the last 5 to 6 months, it's been retrograde, and I asked what medicine were we integrating and what part of our being were we healing? And the medicine that came up was skunk, which I thought was hilarious because, first of all, it's number 7, and Uranus and Neptune are sharing this 7-year cycle, which is amazing. But skunk medicine is about tuning in to like-minded souls, essentially, learning how to only attract what you want to attract into your life. A skunk may stink to us as human beings, but to another skunk, that's all fragrance. That's flowers and love and happiness. And they found their mate, etc. So choosing to tune into your own skunk medicine, that scent and feel and vibration that is you. Remember, we're seeking the vibrational match. Where did that come from? I forget who that came through. That came through Carolyn Casey, that I think it came through Abraham Hicks for her. Vibrational match, vibrational match. Think of that across the board, not just where love is concerned, but certainly that's at the top of the list. But how do you want your friends and your social circles and the power circle and your communities that you want to be a part of and grow with? Are you a vibrational match? Remember what we talked about frequencies, and Uranus totally rules frequencies. Once you've raised your frequency, coming into the lower frequencies truly creates static. And it's uncomfortable. It's painful to some of us. I mean, it's literally painful to me. But we're tuning in to a vibrational match. And that's what skunk medicine has brought to the table over the last 6 months, has been tuning us into what is our vibration. Because our vibration is changing as individuals. We're shifting. And so what used to work and not cause static probably causes static now. And it's okay. It's not a bad thing. Just remember the old radio dials when you had to twist and turn it and jiggle it and try to get the station just clear. So you might have to make some adjustments. Yes, most likely you will, in friendships, in love, in family dynamics going on. There's all kinds of that stuff is all going crazy too right now. It's very deep. The transformations that are happening are very, very deep. But skunk medicine is a wonderful medicine, and I'll include the whole thing there. And then what we're doing now, going forward, I asked what medicine did we need to fully integrate, finding our vibrational match, as it were. All that was revealed to us behind the scenes now going forward, and I got horse, which essentially in the medicine cards is again about connecting to your own innate power. You are already wired to source. automatically, whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you use that connection or not, whether you call often or not, whether you tune in or not, you are still connected to that power. So I highly recommend tuning in and learning to discern the messages going back and forth between you and source. It's a discernment process. It's learning to tune out the other static so that you can get the message clear. Horse is very, very, very powerful. And according to Horse, compassion, caring, teaching, loving, and sharing your gifts, talents, and abilities are the gateways to power. And tonight on 11/11, the gateway is major. It's creative, it's infinite, and we're already there.